Hi there guys, Tom Quayle here. Hope everybody's doing very, very well out there in internet land. So today I want to talk about something that is really prevalent for many guitar players. And that is the best way, or one of the best ways in my opinion, to get to grips with and learn new scales. Now when I say new scales, that might mean to you completely new harmonic information, completely new scales. Or in my case, for example, it might mean really getting to grips with a scale so that you can completely freely improvise with it on the fretboard and come up with information in real time without relying on very large fingerings that become very restrictive. So what most guitar players will do when they learn scales is they will essentially learn a large fingering in one position for a scale. So to give you an example, the scale that we're going to use today is Phrygian Dominant. And the reason I've picked Phrygian Dominant is a genuine reason that I have for this particular scale that needs, particular work for me, because I never learnt in a deep way any of the harmonic minor scale modes, basically. I have a very deep understanding of my major scale modes, my melodic minor scale modes, the diminished scale, so on and so forth. All the stuff I use on a regular basis, but I don't use harmonic minor and therefore Phrygian Dominant in a very deep way. In fact, the only time I've ever really studied harmonic minor and Phrygian Dominant is back in my early shred days when I was obviously learning some neoclassical stuff or some Yngwie Malmsteen, which I don't play anymore. And I learned a 3-note per string shape for the harmonic minor and therefore Phrygian Dominant scale. So if I use the root note C, when I learned this particular scale, and this has always stuck with me for all of my scales, I learnt them as 3-note per string ideas. So that would be this for Phrygian Dominant. Now, again, I'm tuned slightly differently to you guys. I have a C and an F string as opposed to B and E. So those two strings are upper semitone. So ignore the fingering, specifics of the fingering. The idea is I'm learning a large constructed shape across all 6 strings. So it might look like this for C Phrygian Dominant. Okay, here's a chord for context. Then resolve to a minor chord, in this case F minor. Okay, so that is the initial way that most guitar players, including myself, will learn a scale, especially when I was younger and I didn't have a really good kind of mindset of the best way or a very good way of learning a scale efficiently so I could improvise with it. Because all I was interested in is running up and down that scale as fast as possible, or just having some way, some quick way of learning the scale so I could get the sound of it and kind of improvise with it in a very kind of mindless kind of way. So this is how most guitar players approach this kind of thing. Now again, the problem with this is that you end up stuck in this shape, then you have to learn a bunch of other large constructed shapes in order to be able to move this around the fretboard. They're all kind of disparate from one another, and then you find that you don't make considered note choices. You're just kind of picking notes out from the larger structure at random, and you end up with lots of sequenced shapes and things which are perfect for those fast neoclassical runs. They're brilliant for that style. The 3-note per string thing is brilliant for all the legato kind of satch runs and stuff. But if you really want to get into the improvisation side of things, play over chord changes, outline the sound of chords, really make conscious note choices, this is not going to work for you at all. So what are we going to do instead? Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to really learn what's called the formula of this scale, this particular scale, or any scale that we're going to work on. It happens to be Phrygian Dominant today, but if you were working on a Lydian scale, learn the formula of the scale. So what is the formula? The formula is a series of numbers that describe the intervallic makeup of that scale. And we relate everything back to the major scale. So the major scale we describe as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. And it's a generic way of describing the major scale. So if I play C major here at the 3rd fret of the A string, we would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. And every major scale contains those same intervals, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 1. And we just change the root notes to change the key, okay? But the generic setup of the formula is always the same. Now, that describes the intervals within that particular scale. Every other scale in existence can be described by how it differs from the major scale. Okay, so our harmonic minor scale contains 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6, 7, 1. So in relation to the major scale, the third is flattened or lowered by a semitone or by 1 fret on the guitar, if you want to speak very guitaristically. Then the 6 is also flattened, but everything else is the same. So if I take my major scale, 1, 2, 3, we would flatten that for harmonic minor. Then we would go 4, 5, flat 6, and then 7, 1. The Phrygian dominant scale is 1, flat 2, 3, 4, 5, flat 6, and then flat 7. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you within my app Solo. Now, you do not need the app, but it's going to be really useful here to show this to you on screen. That's why I'm using Solo, and also it's going to help me to show you the practice process. You don't need the app, guys, so don't feel like you have to have Solo to do this. If I just show you really quickly in Solo, if I go to the scale trainer that we've got here, I can select all of the different scales that you would want to play to improvise in kind of Western music. And I'm going to go to my harmonic minor modes here and select, where are we? Phrygian dominant. Okay. When I've got my root note as C, because that's what we're using for this example today. When I hit on start scale workout here, you can see the formula there that I talked about. So 1, flat 9, 3, 4, 5, flat 13, flat 7, and 1. Flat 9 is the same as flat 2, and flat 13 is the same as flat 6, okay? The first thing I need to do when I'm ever going to learn any new scale is I need to learn that scale's formula so well that it's completely intuitive. Like knowing my own name is so intuitive, I never have to think about it. Whatever, you know, your phone number, for instance, you're just learning it as a sequence of numbers. So 1, flat 9, 3, 4, 5, flat 6, or flat 13, flat 7. Say it backwards. So 1, start with the 1, of course. 1, flat 7, flat 13, 5, 4, 3, flat 9, 1. It's a bit of a tongue twister, but just make sure it's super clear in your mind what the formula of that scale is. Once you've got that formula down and you're completely familiar with it, the next job is to learn how each of those intervals from the root note, so the 1 to the flat 9, the 1 to the 3, the 1 to the 4, the 1 to the 5, the 1 to the flat 6 or flat 13, and the 1 to the flat 7, look on the guitar and of course sound. So in this instance, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a C on the fretboard. Now, for the sake of being able to show you all of these different intervallic kind of shapes, I'm going to show you from this C at the 10th fret of the D string. But you should do this from every single C, or whatever the root note of the scale you're learning is, every single version of that root note all over the fretboard. So in my case, this C, this C, this one, 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 so on and so forth. You get the idea. So every single C. And I'm going to look at those intervallic functions. Now, the reason I call them intervallic functions is because I'm not talking about the distance of the interval. I'm talking about how that interval or how that number in the formula functions in the scale. So for example, if I take the third or the 3, okay, here is the 1 and here is the 3. Look at that visual relationship. Here is the 1 and here is the 3. So that's 1 ascending to 3 and 1 ascending to 3. This is also 1 to 3, but I'm descending to the 3 of the scale. If you look, here's 1 and here's 3. So we all agree that that's 1 to the 3 of the scale. Well, here's a 1 again, but I'm going down to this 3. Okay, that kind of looks like a minor 6 interval. If you look at the distance between the two notes, it's like a minor 6 interval. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the distance of the notes. I'm talking about how the note functions in the scale. This is 1, this is 3, this is 4, 5, flat 6 or flat 13, flat 7, 1, flat 9, 3, 4, 5, so on and so forth. What you're going to do is you're going to isolate each of these intervals and you're going to learn how they look in relation to the root note. So again, this C. Now, again, if I load up Solo here, when I play the root note now, you can see that Solo has recognized that I've played the root note. Now, if you don't have Solo, you can just do this. You're going to have to just know that you're getting this right. You're going to have to work until you get it right. But Solo is going to confirm that you've got this right. Now I'm going to find the flat 9 interval. Okay, and the flat 9 in a major scale, the natural 2 or 9 is a tone higher than the root note. So this flat 2 or flat 9 must be a semitone higher, or 1 fret, and it's here. And solo says I'm correct, which is great. So here's 1 to flat 9. So I'm cataloguing that visual relationship between the 1 and the flat 9. I could also play it here, across adjacent strings. And I'm only looking within 1 octave ascending or descending. So I'm not looking at this flat 9 here. And I'm not thinking about note names at all. I'm just thinking about what's the visual relationship. Because I want to be able to do this from any root note, from a D or from an F or whatever, F Phrygian Dominant, D Phrygian Dominant. And the visual side stays the same, but the note names change. So 1 to flat 9, 1 to flat 9. Now if I did this descending, I would go 1 down to the flat 9. Here's C again. There's the flat 9 up a semitone. So it makes sense that if this is 1, and I'm thinking of this C, there's also a flat 9 descending. And I'm learning all of this kind of cataloguing. I would then do that from every C on the fretboard. So from this one, I can't descend, of course, and I can't play the adjacent string either. But from this one, okay, I can. And from here, and from this one, I can descend. So I can go, and I can come down to the flat 9. Okay. Now I would do this with a third. So I would take this C again. You start anywhere you like, arbitrarily, but you do this from every root note and go 1 up to the 3. Now check out solo again. It confirms I've played the 3 correctly. Catalogue that shape. This might take you weeks, guys. This is not something that you're going to do over the course of a 20-minute practice session. Okay. It takes hard work. 1 to 3, 1 to 3, 1 to 3 descending, 1 to 3 descending. Okay, now if you then do the 4, again do this from every root note on the fretboard, every C, 1 to 4. Okay, I could also play 1 down to 4. Okay, then do the 5. I'm doing these really quickly. This might again take you, a few hours, or it might take you a few weeks to get really good at this, but you want to make sure you're really strong on these intervallic the functions and the distance, so not the distance, the visual relationship between the root note and each of the intervallic functions within the scale's formula. There's 1 to 5 descending, then the flat 13, okay, again here, then descending, then do the flat 7, okay, so on and so forth, all within 1 octave. When you've done this, you will have catalogued all of the intervallic shapes that occur within that scale within 1 octave, ascending and descending. And this is already super powerful. Now, the more scales you do, lots of scales contain the same intervallic functions or similar intervallic functions. So this will become an easier process the more of this you do. But the first time you do it, this is going to take some time. Okay, so when you've got this process down, the next step, because you're really familiar with all of those intervallic functions, is just to go through from every single root note and play all of them one after the other. So 1 to flat 9. Okay, I can't play any others from any other shapes from this particular C. Then play the 1 to 3. Then 1 to 4. 1 to 5. 1 to flat 6 or flat 13. Then 1 to flat 7. And do that from every single C. Okay. Now at this stage, you've not played the scale yet. You've just played the intervallic functions within the scale. So the next step when you've done all of this, however long this takes you to get really good at this point, don't cheat, don't jump ahead, be disciplined with yourself when you're practicing and get really good at each of these stages. The next step, and this is where it becomes fun, is to load up the scale. And again, I'm going to do this in solo, but you don't have to. Again, you can. The great thing about solo is it's going to confirm when you're doing this correctly, but you don't have to use the app. The next step is to play the scale through 1 octave from every root note on the fretboard, starting from each finger on the left hand. Okay. So in this instance, I'm going to start with the first finger on this C, the lowest C I can find on the E string in this case. So do each C on every single string. Okay, and I'm going to play the scale starting from the first finger, and I'm going to really think about these intervallic functions. Try not to learn this as a fixed shape, try to think about these intervallic functions. So 1 You can see solo says I'm correct. Flat 9, 3. As you're doing this, think about each of these intervallic functions that you've mapped out in your head in relation to the 1, 4, 5, flat 13, flat 7, 1. Don't go any further. Don't try and play the next octave in the same place. Don't think about position. Don't think about staying in position. Think about, okay, what's the most convenient fingering I can play within 1 octave, and I want to be fully aware of every single intervallic function that I'm playing. 1, flat 9, 3, 4, 5, flat 13, flat 7, 1. If it helps, say them out loud like that. The next step, play it with the second finger and see if the fingering changes. Now in this case, it will. So I want to go 1, flat 9. I know the 3 now is here. Don't try and play these fast. Think about what you're playing. Be really super conscious and in the moment as you're doing this. 3, 4, 5. Now I'm going to play the flat 13 here in relation to the root notes. Flat 7, 1. Okay, then I'm going to do it from the third finger. We get 1, flat 9, 3, 4. The 5 I'm going to play here. Then the flat 13, so I'm going to play that here. Flat 7, 1. Then do the same thing from the little finger. 1, flat 9, 3, 4, 5, flat 13, flat 7, 1. Now do it again and again and again and again until you're really comfortable with each of those different fingerings, and then do it from all the other C's on the fretboard. So from here, 1, flat 9, 3, 4, 5, flat 13, flat 7, 1. Start with the second finger. 1. Don't move on to the second finger until you're fully comfortable with this first finger though. Don't jump ahead, don't cheat yourself. You know, the discipline here is really important. So 1, flat 9, 3, 4, 5, and then the flat 13, flat 7, 1. All the while being conscious of the visual relationship of each of these notes to the root note, and we're ascending in this case. Okay. Once you've done that from every single finger, ascending and descending, again, solo's great for this because it catalogues it all for you. Then you should do the same thing descending from every single finger on the fretboard. Okay, so in this instance, I'm going to hit the down direction on solo, and I'm going to start the workout. In this instance, the intervals are now reversed. So let's start from this C just here. So I can see the 1. I'm starting with the first finger, of course, the flat 7, the flat 13, the 5, 4, 3. I'm going to stretch back to this flat 9, and then the 1. Okay, then I start with the second finger. 1, flat 7, flat 13, 5, 4, 3, flat 9, 1. Oops. Now the thing is, what you're not trying to do here is catalogue a whole bunch of different scale shapes based on which finger you're starting on. You will start to do that. The point is you're practicing knowing where these intervallic functions are by their visual relationship to the root note in real time. And the idea is that by doing this, it doesn't matter which finger you end up starting the scale on the left hand, from whichever root note you're on the fretboard, you will know where those intervallic functions are and therefore can play a fingering that starts on that particular finger. So for instance, I have a C here at the 12th fret of the C string for me, but it's the 13th fret of the B string for you guys. So I can see here that if I play the 1, let me load this up on solo so you guys can see and confirm it's right. So 1, flat 7, flat 13, 5, 4, 3, flat 9, 1. Okay, if I start with the second finger, so 1, second finger, flat 7, flat 13, 5, 4, 3 here, flat 9, 1. So all the while here I'm hearing the scale in a really deep and detailed way as well. Each of those intervallic functions within the scale I'm hearing in a deep and detailed way, as opposed to just running up and down this. That's great for technique. It's not going to help you to improvise with the scale. So once I've got to grips with both the individual intervallic functions in the scale, and then I've also got to grips with the ability to play the scale from any finger on the left hand, from any root note on the guitar, on any string, ascending and descending through one octave. Now I'm really starting to get really au fait with this particular scale and its makeup genetically on the guitar, the DNA of this scale, its formula. And I can really start to get to grips with the fingerings. I'm not learning large pieces of information. I'm actually in real time manipulating this scale on the fretboard and thinking about where those intervallic functions are. The next step is to start to very slowly connect some of this stuff together and start to a little bit improvise. So I'm going to start on this C just here. Okay, again, let me load up solo. So 1, flat 9, 3, 4, 5, flat 13, flat 7. Now I'm on my second finger and I'm going to visualize from this C here. I'm not going to think of these notes from this C, this lower C, as part of this giant shape. Here's 1. Okay, let's play it one more time. Flat 9, there's that relationship. 3, 4, 5, flat 13, flat 7, 1. Now I'm thinking from this C, and I'm thinking about how can I play these intervallic functions from this C. So 1, flat 9, 3, 4. Okay, now I've run out of guitar. Okay, so if I wanted to continue the scale, I'd have to start thinking and shifting my hand, as it were, or I could jump my hand up. So I'm going to now think from this C and play 5, flat 13, here's the flat 7, and the 1. Okay? So I'm connecting in this way. And then the final step, way down the line when you've got all of this down and you're really, really comfortable with ascending and descending and thinking about all of these intervallic functions as you go, is to start to really consciously choose notes out of the scale and visualize the fretboard really slowly and improvise with it. And think about the intervallic functions as you're playing. So I'm going to play 1, flat 9, flat 13, 5, 3, 1, 7, flat 7 in this case, flat 13, 3, 4, flat 9, 1, flat 7, flat 13, 4, 5, 3. And at first you should call them out in this way, but eventually you just be conscious of them in your inner mind, if you like. So I'm going to start to improvise now. And in my head, I'm calling out each of these intervallic functions. But what I'm not doing is I'm not relying on large 6 and 5 string scale shapes to do this. I'm thinking about these intervallic functions that I learned and programmed in now. Okay, so hopefully that gives you the idea. Now you could do this with any scale. If I was going to do this with C Lydian, I need the formula 1, 2, 3, sharp 4, 5, 6, 7. I need to go through the whole process I talked about in terms of individually identifying how each of those intervallic functions looks against the root note. Then go through with every fingering on the left hand, starting from each finger, ascending and descending through one octave. Then I start to improvise with that and connect those little chunks of information. And then I start to improvise. So again, when I'm improvising with C Lydian, I'm thinking about each of those things. 1, sharp 4, 5, 6, 1, 7, 2 or 9, 1, sharp 4, 6, and then let's say I go up to the 2 here, the 3, the sharp 4, the 6, whatever, and then I can start to really connect those things. So that's the idea, guys. I know this is a long video. There's a lot of information in here, but I think it's a really important thing for guitar players to really get to grips with this more efficient way of thinking about scales. It's a lot of work. It doesn't have the immediate reward factor of learning an immediate shape that you can run up and down. But generally, when you're learning things like this, the shortcuts equal instant gratification and long-term dissatisfaction. And that's what this will avoid. It will mean that anytime you want to learn a new scale, learn a new piece of harmonic information, of course this works with arpeggios as well, you really start to get to grips with these things in a much more involved way. And you'll make really conscious note choices as you're improvising. So I hope that's useful, guys. If you want to know more about this style of fretboard visualization, I have a tutorial on my website, which is a multi-hour long video tutorial, which will talk you through this fretboard visualization process in great detail. This way of thinking with a huge amount of different harmonic information and material, and then apply it to a bunch of different tunes. So that could be very useful for some of you guys. I will leave a link to that in the description of the video down below. Of course, if you want to check out Solo as well, Solo is available now for iOS devices. It's a really great way of helping you to practice and visualize the fretboard, both for chord changes, playing through chord changes and also scales in this way. It's also a very good ear training device as well. It's available on iOS now. It will be available for Android if you're watching this. This is being filmed on the 28th of May, 2021. It will be available hopefully in a few weeks on Android devices now. And I will update this video with the Android version link down below once that's out. But check out the iOS version down below. You'll find a link to that, of course. And yeah, as I say, I hope you found this useful, guys. If you did, hit the like and subscribe buttons below. If you want to support me and help me to do more videos in the future, you can check out all the rest of my tuition products. If you want to check out my Modern Legato series or any of my theory series that are available on my website, you can do so below. That would be great. I've also got lots of products available with licklibrary.com that you will find linked below as well. Check out my Ibanez TQM1 signature guitar. There we go, guys. That's all of the kind of promotional stuff out of the way. Thanks again for watching, guys. Hit the bell notification icon to be notified every time I upload a new video. My name's Tom Quayle, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.